Ferrari's Sebastian Vettel is enduring a tough time this season as he struggles to get as much out of the team's SF1000 car as teammate Charles Leclerc. This difference in performance has caused some to suggest that perhaps the machinery on either side of the garage might not be the same. Is it possible that Ferrari could be deliberately sabotaging the departing four-time world champion? Let's take a look at what we know. After another difficult time at the Portuguese Grand Prix, where Leclerc qualified and finished 4th, while Vettel started 15th and came home 10th, the German expressed some frustration afterwards about his plight. His comments to German broadcaster RTL were interpreted by some as him suggesting the two Ferrari cars may not be completely equal. He said, "It's obvious that the other car is much faster, that it looks much easier for Charles," and crucially, he added that he had been biting his tongue all year long. He then said, "Some idiot might never figure it out, but am I a complete idiot? I doubt it." Was this a hint at Leclerc and Vettel's cars not being the same? Ferrari moved quickly to dispel any talk of its drivers not getting equal equipment, as team principal Mattia Binotto made clear to Sky Italia that Seb and Charles' cars are identical, no doubt. He simply hoped that Sebastian would put in a much better performance in Imola. Vettel too was pushed later on the specific issue of whether or not he thought the cars were different, and although not as suggestive, he was not entirely definitive in ruling the idea out. Speaking to journalists, he says, "I have to think that we have the same car, and I think I trust the people around me and in the garage." So where are the discrepancies between the two Scuderia drivers happening, and what can we perhaps put it down to if it's not deliberate? Vettel is clear that his main problem with the current car is that he cannot get the performance he wants from it during qualifying on Saturday. Then, starting so far down the order, his chances of making progress on Sundays are pretty slim. He says his qualifying woes are triggered simply by him lacking the consistency and being able to feel the grip that Leclerc is able to do. Looking at the qualifying gaps between the two drivers this season, it is clear that Vettel is facing more difficulties at this stage of the year than he did early on. Here is a look at how far Vettel has been behind or ahead of Leclerc so far this season. He's been out-qualified 10 times out of the 12 races so far. The times here are taken from the qualifying sessions that both cars competed in, so if there was a Q1 or Q2 exit for either driver, then we're looking at those sessions. It's clear that while Vettel and Leclerc were very evenly matched at the beginning of the season, that as the year has gone on, the gap between them has actually gotten bigger. But any suggestion that this is down to Ferrari deliberately hobbling Vettel because he's on his way out appears to be nonsense, because it would be detrimental to the team's ambitions to do that. Due to Ferrari's difficult campaign so far, where it especially struggled in the middle phase of the championship on tracks like Spa and Monza, it has slipped down the Constructors' Championship order. Right now, it's sitting 6th in the standings, and there's a huge amount of money at stake in its fight until the end of the campaign. With F1's commercial rights income paid out solely on the position that teams finish in the Constructors' Championship, then every spot that an outfit can gain is worth millions of dollars each year. Even for a well-funded team like Ferrari, the difference of around $10 million between 3rd and 6th is something that makes a big difference. The downside to Ferrari finishing 6th at the end of this year would be huge, so it's illogical to believe that the team would do anything to deliberately hinder one of its cars. But there may well be an alternative explanation for why Vettel and Leclerc are performing so differently, even if they have in theory the same car, and that may come down to their individual driving style. Ever since Leclerc and Vettel have worked together at Ferrari, it's been an open secret that they have quite different driving styles. Vettel is a driver who thrives when the rear end of the car is firmly planted, which explains why he was so good in F1's blown diffuser era. He excels when he has faith that the back end of the car is going to stick, as that allows him to harness his desire to simply brake late, turn the car, point to the exit and go. Lacking any of that rear stability, or even under braking with the super heavy current F1 cars, hurts Vettel more than other drivers. Leclerc, on the other hand, is much more traditional and more adaptable. He can hustle a car like Max Verstappen, driving around inconsistencies in handling. He also learned in his early campaign with Sauber to better harness the kind of understeer characteristics that modern F1 machinery has. Having such a difference of style between two drivers gives a team two options. Either they try to find a compromise that suits them both, or they head in a direction that suits one of the drivers better. So if you're a team where one of your drivers is key to your future and one of them is leaving, it's logical your attention will go in one direction. On Sunday night in Portugal, Leclerc offered an interesting answer when asked about his view on the package of updates that the team has introduced over the last few races. Speaking to journalists, he said, "I feel quite at ease with the car at the moment," and said the updates always went in the right direction of his driving style. This has perhaps helped him perform better on track. This then may well offer the best answer as to what's happening at Ferrari right now, that the car has been developed in a direction that perfectly suits Leclerc because he's viewed as the team's future, so it makes sense for his and the team's 2022 ambitions. For Vettel, it means there will be no easy way for him to turn things around in the few remaining races this year. Yet, it remains in Ferrari's interest to try to help him as much as it can in that fight for third place and the millions of dollars that are at stake.